Operations Committee. This was, I guess the board agreed to, at the last board meeting, agreed to merge the committees and to delegate the authority to put together the new committee. So this is it. It's a move to efficiency because we had some of the same members in both. I think they're closely related. So as long as you, Richard, and Mike can sit through the finance part of it, I think it was helpful and efficient to merge both. So it's 9:02. We have a quorum. We could get started. So Phil, do you? We have the.
I think the way we have it set up is that we're going to have facilities go first.
Sure, that's great. And then whoever doesn't want to stay on for the finance portion can sign off.
Yeah, I'll have to jump off. I have a meeting at the high school for 10 o'clock.
Okay. All right. Good.
All right, so we'll get started. Not too much to update for facilities. Just dealing with a little bit of temperature change. You know, the roller coaster that we have here in New England for temperatures. Not a whole lot of breakdown. Things are going relatively well. I'm actually eagerly anticipating and waiting for the cold weather to come and stay because these are just difficult times. Custodial update. Hernando retires 12/31 of this year. We're recalling Robert Fuda. His position was cut cut June 30th of 21. So he'll be coming back effective 1/3/22. And that's really all I have for update for facilities. Very, very quick and short. This month. Any questions? Anything you wanted to discuss?
There was a couple of things. I guess the weather right now, while it's getting cold, it's not really. How do you managing that with circulating the air? I guess it's not a big deal yet, right?
No, it's not a big deal yet. We've had some cold nights. We've had some cold days, so I got to pay attention to the fresh air intake overnight.
Right.
For the most part, during the day is not an issue. And we have the next 10 days. We're in the 50s at least. I think we have maybe one day, Monday, it's going to be upper 40s. So all next week's going to be in the 50s. I believe our next cold snap starts the following Sunday, so a week from this Sunday. But until we hit those temperatures, daytime temperatures that are below freezing, it's still fresh air.
Right.
And a lot of it, once we get, below freezing, we start risking the damage to coils to freeze, but they're still opened. It's just not 100%. It could be down to 50%, 25%, depending on the day, wind, and all that good stuff. But right now, it's not an issue at all.
Any issues related to, we have a little bit of a spike in cases and quarantines now. I'm assuming everything we need for PPEs and masks and all of that stuff, we have more than we need on all of that.
I do believe we have plenty of PPEs on hand, yes. And as they get called in, we deliver them out. So
yeah, okay. The other thing we touched on at the last meeting, I believe, was, and I don't know if we're doing anything about it, was the, the view that we have rainwater going recycling through the waste treatment plant. And are we doing anything about that? I know we talked about investigating that further, but what have we done, if anything?
The only steps we move forward to at this point is getting Veolia. They're going to get a team together to do this analysis for us. It's just getting the team together and how we can do it because we can't walk roofs during the school day. So it's just getting the plan in order as to how we're going to pull this off. But we've already spoken to Gino, who runs our wastewater plant. So hopefully within this month, possibly the end of January, we'll have some analysis done, at least at the middle school level.
Yeah. Okay.
Mike, it might be a good idea for Veolia to take out the original drawings, all the drawings that you can find, because there are so many different connections.
Yeah.
And there are some original plumbing drawings. I remember seeing them in the basement of the school administration building.
Right.
A related question, Richard. Was there ever any anticipation of pulling, Hurlbut into the xenon plant?
There was always a discussion. The plant is not sized for Hurlbut, and the money was not set aside for Hurlbut. But I think the discussion was had, and in the end, considering the age of Hurlbut's septic fields, it's probably a good idea to plan for that.
Yeah, we had spoken to Veolia. We had opened a conversation with them a few weeks back, and they believe that we have enough capacity to be able to make the xenon plant tie-in from the elementary school work. So we'll obviously did a little bit better analysis than just a verbal, but something that we definitely look into.
Yeah. The engineer who designed it was not asked to include Hurlbut.
Right.
But the flows may be different now because you have fewer students. So Viola can do their analysis. You would have to factor in, allow some wiggle room for an increase in student population, and
Sure.
whatever the loads are.
Mm-hmm.
But it can be done. It's not.
Yeah, I think that this was, towns looking at infrastructure grant money, and one of the things that the first selectwoman was asking is about sort of a cost estimate for doing that, because that's something with respect to some of the infrastructure grant money that we might be eligible for, as part of this whole, town master plan. That might be something that we can actually get paid for. So there was a push for her to get some numbers together, even estimates, to see if she was going to actually put that into any grant proposals or infrastructure related money that we might be eligible for as a town.
Okay. Well, Mike, if you do start looking into that, Joe Stromwell's on the building committee is the one to talk to, because that's his field of expertise.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anything else? Do you want to move to the next item? I guess the next item is capital budget.
I'm sorry, just because we have Richard here, and just to respect his time, do we want to do the optimization update before capital? Or I'm not quite sure, Richard, if you're staying on for.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm assuming Richard's staying on for capital.
You're staying for capital as well, Richard?
Yeah, I want to hear what your dreams are.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's do the capital then.
Yeah. Let's go through capital. And also, did we make any progress on the workflow agreement between the building committee and the district?
It's on the building committee's shoulders. We haven't met in months because we have no projects at this time.
All right. Well, that's a good segue to to the next item.
All right, so capital, this is an initial list. I still have a couple of prices to get, which I should have within the next week.
You want to share the? Can
Oh
you
yeah,
share the screen?
I'll go line by line.
Yeah.
With what we have. Andrew, are you able to actually share the capital list?
Yeah, let me take a look. Let me see what I can do.
Thank you. I can get started on line one. It's very simple. It's the high school C5 air handler that catastrophically failed. We have a price in there for a direct replacement, $48,686, with AC, $21,725,000, for a grand total of $70,411 dollars. We excuse me. I've been in contact with Jack Davidoff. We're going to try to develop a plan, get some analysis off of prints to see if we can't jump onto the rooftop unit that feeds C6, 7, 8, and 16. He said generally rooftop units have some room. but we have to get the desired CFM to each register. So this price is just in here as a backup, but it sounds, after talking to Jack, that we should be able to tie a couple of trunks to the supply of the rooftop unit that's up there, the roof RTU 9. It's going to take a little bit of analysis. It's not a whole lot that can be done during the year because it is duct work and it's evasive work about drop ceilings and things like that. I have to get a little bit of information to make sure that we do have the room, and as long as we do, that's the route we'll go. Every classroom in C Wing shares a common return. It's a plenum ceiling, common return. Even rooms that aren't fed heat from the rooftop unit has a return through that rooftop unit. So it wouldn't be changing anything. It would just be adding a couple of pieces of ductwork to the 2 diffusers that are on each side of the wall, each side of the room. So it's 4 diffusers, 2 from each side. So I'll get the numbers to Jack and he'll let us know what we have and what we're up against and if we can do it. But it sounds like we should be able to.
I guess I'm no means an expert on air handlers, but are the other units that you would actually have do the extra work in good condition enough to handle the extra work?
Yeah, they're in good enough condition. Absolutely.
Okay.
It's what we have here. It's an air handler strictly for one classroom. After investigating in the ceiling work, it seemed to be that air handler fed 3 classrooms before the last renovation was done. Now it's down to 1 classroom. So we're trying to not spend this kind of dollar on 1 classroom. So yeah, the rooftop's in good enough condition. I believe it's a 2006 install, so it has some life to it. So that's a route we would like to go, and ideally that'll be much less inexpensive. And it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense for an air handler for one specific room if we can hold off on that.
I'm sorry I joined late. I don't know if you elaborated on the room and what it's used for, Mike.
C5, I believe, is just a common classroom. It's got vaulted ceilings, probably 20 feet high. From my understanding, it was before I was here. I believe there's a drop ceiling in there that was removed and raised up about 12 to 15 feet. So it's a large room. But
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm talking more about the instruction. What the thing about that room, many years ago, it used to be actually the faculty room. They did raise the ceiling, but the point is that there's doors on both sides of the corridor. You can access it both ways, but that's one of our largest instructional spaces. So classes are assigned there, but also if you need to bring in, for example, anywhere between 35 and 40 students to do something different, presentations, things like that, that is the room that is probably the most effective to use because it does have that large flexible space in it.
Yeah. Well, one way or another, it needs to get done. So.
Correct. I mean, even if we were to, I got a price initially just because if it was, relatively affordable, we would just do a quick swap out. And even when we came through with Mulvaney to look at the system, it's an 8 to 12 week lead time. So it's so far away that we're going to be out of winter by the time it could even arrive anyway. So that's why I'd like to research different ways of doing this to actually be more efficient.
Okay.
So line 2 is campus wide. We have failing notification systems. So on outside of the buildings, we got limited PA instruction, whether it's recess or gyms or what have you. Bell schedules. So I'm walking the company around this morning at 10 o'clock. We're going to go school by school, and we're going to get an analysis of what we need for exterior speakers to be installed, just to be able to have updates all 4 corners of the building. Obviously, we know only building with 4 corners is the WISP, but we'll have to be a little bit more creative in the other buildings because there's a lot of jogs and offsets.
Okay.
Any questions there?
No.
Okay. One thing I want to introduce this year, which I've been thinking about for the last year or two, especially with COVID now, ductwork cleaning. I've reached out to a number of people, and the ones that they recommended was Duct and Vent Cleaning of America, and this came from Mulvaney. This is what Jack would recommend, although he doesn't really deal with a whole bunch of duct cleaning. So this will be for the high school, for the intermediate school, and the elementary school. So that I would like to get going. It's roughly going to be all summer long. I believe the high school is about a month's worth of work. Intermediate school, I believe, is 2 weeks. Elementary school is a little bit less. What they do is, if there's not accesses into the ductwork, they will cut accesses. They come in with brushes. They come in with big HEPA-vac trucks or small HEPA-vac systems, depending on where the location is. They clean, disinfect all diffusers, which are the supplies and the returns to the rooftop units. They clean and disinfect the rooftop unit, all the coils in the rooftop unit. So it's a very deep cleaning, and it will definitely help efficiency. It'll help improve our CFM, and obviously with COVID, it's about time we take care of this. I've been here since 2000. It's never been on the table. So it's something I would like to introduce, and this is something that needs to be done as we get going with this triannually.
Yeah.
Mike, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Why are we not including the middle school?
Middle school air handlers are a little bit more difficult to get into. I certainly can. It's just there's smaller air handlers, difficult locations. I figured at this point I would just start with the 3 schools and get them back in here to do a more extensive look. It's very hard for them to come in because obviously we don't have prints for that building, and do all their measurements. It's something I could definitely include, but as hopefully moving forward with optimization, a lot of these units are going to be replaced. But it is something I can certainly look into.
I think it's fine maybe not to include it here, but I think that you definitely have to look into that.
Yeah.
I think just because it's hard doesn't mean that we don't have to do it. I'm assuming, I'm surprised that ducts were not cleaned on even if the cadence was a long period of time. I'm surprised that up to this point we didn't have a regular cadence for duct cleaning. But it's, yeah, they should definitely look into it.
Yeah, I didn't mean difficult. What I meant was difficult for a takeoff to get some sort of price. Not the
Yeah,
work
yeah.
work
No,
is the
that,
work.
yeah, no, that's what we should just get a price.
I will get them in here. He told me if I could get them in here for Christmas break that he can give us a price for the middle school as well. So I will work on that. So it means I can get this price. Once he gets here, it'll probably take him a day or two to do his measurements. I will certainly have a price for our next meeting. So I'll work on that.
Mike, do you have another company to call so that you could get a competitive number? Or?
This was the only company that I could find. Everybody else was too small. They couldn't handle the workload, couldn't handle the size.
So Richard, real quick, to that point, a lot of the numbers that we have here are really just preliminary numbers. For a project this size, we would definitely have to issue an RFP. So we're going to issue a formal RFP once we get closer. But we wanted just to have pricing just so that we can have a discussion, and just to have a range of what the pricing will be. But once we get close to that point, we'll be issuing RFPs.
Yeah, because this is going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it certainly will be over a couple, that's for sure. Okay. Any other questions on duct cleaning?
Do you know when the last time this was done, Mike?
I tried to look up in records. I can't find it anywhere.
I don't think it was ever done.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Now we have line 4, which is just add the double doors to the gym for the intermediate school, just a fire safety issue. There's 2 exits to the same hallway. So if something ever happened in the hallway, there's nowhere to go. It's something that we had talked about for a couple of years now. So that's going to be on the table for this budget year.
Mm-hmm.
Line 5 is court repairs. We have 2 solutions. One's temporary, one's permanent. We'll be speaking with the town and the athletics to see where we go with this. We have a repair for $50,000 that'll treat what we have right now, take all the cracks, repair the cracks. It's an acid wash. It's a relining. It's a repainting of all the courts.
Yeah.
And then there was a more extensive, actually refurbishment, which is completely milling out the concrete, repouring a 4-inch slab, all pressure, I can't remember the PSI for the concrete. That was about $605,000, I believe it was, but that's something that's going to take a couple of years to prepare for and include the park and rec with it.
You know, Mike, one of the things that a couple of years ago, and I don't remember, is we did a repair and we also replaced the windshields there.
Mhm.
And so is this another, and I don't know, we kind of repair, we filled in the cracks, I think, or things like that. Is
It's
this sort
almost-
of redoing the same thing again?
It is. It's almost identical to what we had done 2 years ago. Basically, the frost heave comes and it cracks, it re-cracks the concrete, picks everything
Right.
up and brings it back down.
Are we going to have to kind of, at some point, just bite the bullet and say we have to redo? I mean, we have a pretty,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, that's why we have
pretty,
just,
pretty amazing tennis program.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
I hate throwing all this, like refilling cracks every 2 years.
Mike, you want to just give a quick overview as to why we continue to have the issues with the tennis court?
yeah, it's just it was built on the wetlands, and once the cracks have come in, it just continues to lift and put moisture into the underneath the bottom of the concrete, and it just moisture springs right through. So everything that gets repaired it's inevitably going to crack again. There's no way around it until we do the complete refurbishment, which was a $605,000 repair. And now with that repair, right, for refurbishment, it's months worth of work, and it's nothing that can start and usually middle end of March. We need the temperatures to be, adequate. They'll work up till Christmas, but the work can't start till at least, the freezing temperatures are gone. So usually he said it's about the second to third week of March that they could begin these projects.
Now, if we, as part of all this facilities work we're doing, is it something to kind of make a mental note that we should probably not be putting if we were going to look at work that's going to eventually be done, should we be relocating the tennis courts in a place where the ground is more stable, or is this?
This, they believe, will be an actual repair, and it'll last for some time. I mean, there's talk. I mean, I've heard people want to bring it to central office to the field, move the playground, but you start moving it to here. It's not only tennis courts. We're going to need an additional parking lot. We're going to need different things that's going to take out that field. Not that the sports for the kids that couldn't be moved to the synthetic field for the soccer field. For their soccer and their lacrosse here, something that definitely could be looked into. The price would obviously be different since it's a lot more site work, but it's something we could definitely proceed with and see where we stand, just to relocate it out of that location.
Well, this is something that I guess, as Tecton does their work, it's something that to make a mental note to say, is there a better spot ultimately for the tennis courts where it would be, where we wouldn't have this long-term issue of the ground moving underneath
Right.
the courts or whatever.
And would we have this problem if we moved to like a hard true court? I mean, do we have to have the hard surface courts?
You mean go to clay or go to grass?
Yeah.
You can't really.
I couldn't even elaborate on that.
You can't, because I guess competitively,
That's what I was wondering.
yeah, everybody plays on
required.
the same court, right?
Yeah, it just seems like it might be a good time to make a switch.
Yeah, that I can't speak of.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, line 6 is relining the chimneys in North House and Core. The issue that we're having is we're getting a lot of flue gas condensation coming back to the boilers. So it's really to extend the life of the boiler systems to not have that acidic water come back into the boiler. And it's just 2 of the houses. It's only the houses that are hot water. It's not the steam. East house, south house are steam. Those are adequate. Core and north are hot water systems, and that's what brings back the condensation. And it's very acidic, and it just will definitely it'll short cycle our boilers. Any question there? Okay. Line 7 is the repointing of the brick for the north house. East side of the building, it has the flashing is worn, needs to be replaced. A lot of the brick has condensation into it. It needs to be cleaned. It needs to be repointed. Probably some grout lines have to be replaced. Just to ensure that the brick doesn't start disintegrating and falling apart. So relatively, it sounds relatively minor, but it'll definitely extend the life of the building.
Tony, one comment. I'm not sure the Board of Finance is going to want to talk about putting money into North House until a decision's been made on how it's going to be used.
I think that's what I was going to say at the end of this, is basically saying, okay, things that have to do with the middle school and Hurlbut, let's just think about that, about what is a really must do versus things that could potentially wait until a final decision is made. But I think that we have to really look closely at things middle school and Hurlbut. I agree with you, Richard, until, like, if it's an absolute have to do, then we'll have to do it. Yeah.
Okay. Line 8 is just district-wide. It's paving, getting some of our parking lots back into condition. I'm looking for this year to do the front of the middle school, the staff and senior lot. It's just there are large cracks that run the whole length of the front and the back of the parking lot. Parking spaces have large cracks in them. We have gullies, so we have tendency for icing in the wintertime, slip spots. We've definitely had a couple falls over the past, last 3 to 5 years. It's just getting to be in a little bit rough condition. Again, we have Greenway just giving us an initial price. Obviously, this will be an RFP as well. I will definitely have this price by the time we have our next meeting, but that's what I'm looking for, is just to start hitting the points that we know aren't going to change. And the front of the high school main parking lot's not going to be changed. Okay. Line 9 is fire panel replacement for the intermediate school and the high school, with a tentative plan for the following year to do the middle school, elementary school. Obviously, we know we'll probably end up staying away from it, but fire panels are getting to be a bit of a nuisance. They're getting to be about the end of their life. There are EST3 panels in there right now. In 5 years, parts will not be available. Within 10 years, they will not be able to speak, and they'll be out of date, and just useless panel. They're going out at their useful time, and their licensing will be gone. We're looking to upgrade to an EST4, and that'll get us at least the next 25, 30 years, which will outlast our panels. This is just for panel work. Down the line, we may have to address some older locations, such as the Senior Center, South House, East House, just because those are about the oldest devices that we have that we started coming up with problems that the solder joints are starting to wear out a little bit. So that's for intermediate school and for high school. That price, once we agree to move forward with the project, that price will decrease, because he bases it on single school installations. But as you get multiple school, there are discounts.
Mike, when you replace the panel, do you have to upgrade any of the devices?
Some of the devices may, until it doesn't need to be updated to the EST4. It's just going to be, do we have devices that are already bad, whether they have bad wiring or bad solder joints. But no, the devices that we have in place now will speak to the EST4.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Line 10 is HVAC for the weight room and for the dance studio. We've been fighting with the dance studio for the last few years. What we have is, when the room was built and designed, it's on the end of an air handler that feeds that room, which is already taxed. So there's no airflow. We have such limited CFM that we're not pushing any heat in there. So 30 degree day, the room might see 55, 58 degrees. So that's just looking to put a package unit in, possibly air conditioning and heat as well.
Well, it can't be used in the spring or the summer at all. has
And-
never had proper ventilation since the first building.
Right.
It's like 90-something degrees. You can't even go in there. 'Cause
Yeah, we have,
all
we
the
have some of
sun.
we have some of the gravity exhaust that Richard had spoke of in some of our past meetings. It just doesn't quite bring up the fresh air needed into the space, and it's definitely extremely hot in the summer, extremely cold in the wintertime. It just doesn't have the proper flow. Okay, any questions there?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Line 11 is probably something we'll obviously be putting a hold on, but I just want to get it on people's minds. We need to start thinking about the North House HVAC. Those unit ventilators are well past their useful life. And it would be nice if we keep the building. We'll definitely have to bring somebody in to give us an idea how we can redesign the space and how we can actually condition the space better. This year, like most schools had this issue, a lot of mildew because of how humid and how wet it was. Well, the North House was no exception. It's a great space for class, for learning, and it's just wearing away because we just don't have the proper HVAC in there. There were a couple lines from the 10-year plan for line 12, and it's renovation of bathrooms. Now, whether this is the elementary school or the middle school, the gang bathrooms are in pretty rough shape. Obviously, elementary school, we don't know what we're going to do. Middle school, we don't know what we're going to do. But the middle school has such wasted space for around the gymnasiums. We have 6 gang bathrooms. We have 2 for students, boys, 2 for students, girls, 1 staff men's, 1 staff women's, which are back to back. So it would be nice to have it redesigned, move the teachers, the adult bathroom over, and keep a larger gang bathroom in for students. There would be plenty of room for the staff and a greater space for the students. Some of them are block partitions as opposed to the fiberglass or composite material. Very small, not much room on each side of the toilet. It's certainly not ADA accessible. So just something that would be nice to get on the radar and just start seeing how we can change our bathroom space over there. And 13, if there's no questions on 12.
Well, I just don't see the middle school listed as 12. Am I having trouble reading this? It just says.
Well, it says elementary school, but it's listed as a line for a 1.9 million for middle school, 1.295 for the elementary school. So I shall put a slash in there. I'll update the capital.
That's
sheet.
in the
In the 10-year.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Line 13 is just to get the ball rolling for, and I know this is going to come through with the optimization, is to have E-Wing, the upgrade that we did 5 years ago, I believe it was 6 years ago, to have C-Wing and D-Wing at least get some sort of preliminary projection as to how we can make those spaces match. D-Wing is in rough shapes, similar to the North House. Old unit ventilators, certainly past their useful life. So it would just be nice to start talking about how we can, what kind of number we're talking. 'Cause I believe we were $1.5 million back when we did this. So it'd be interesting to see where we're at. I know we have all the brickwork stored for D-Wing and the Connex boxes. It was all ordered with the other brickwork. And I know that's a minor part of the cost of the job, but we do have some of the materials here. Somebody have a question?
No, go ahead. The only thing that, I think we're just going, and this is very preliminary, which is good. But we're going to have to separate those things that are things that we know we have to do that are probably not going to either they have to be done immediately or they're not going to really change as a result of the work we're doing on our entire facilities. Right. But some of these things might have to wait a little bit until we really understand exactly what we're going to do with some of the other facilities. But, even for things that we have to do where we know our facilities might change, if they're health and safety related, we're going to have to do it anyway.
Mhm.
So
Well, this capital sheet is in priority level. So
Yeah.
that's why they're at the bottom, just for discussion, just to talk about. We are more than aware that they will probably be moving.
Yeah.
But it's just something I want to keep on the table.
Sure.
Because that's just where we're at.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, every time I look at it, I keep thinking of it. Well, but then if we do this to North House, we're going to be doing this in the future. Is this the wisest way to spend the
right. I
money,
think that's
it's like,
yeah, that's a discussion we're going to have to, absolutely have.
Mhm.
And, but it's good to get it all down on paper before we start moving things around or saying, okay, this is going to be tackled by the overall facilities project and, whatever.
Right. And then the last one on the list is a track replacement. That's most likely going to drop out. The town has their 4th of 5 payments going in this July, and
Right.
one is next July. So that'll be dropping down into the following year for the track replacement.
So how does the sinking fund work again? I have to be.
The way the town has it set up is they've already put in 3 of their 5-year
Right.
installments. They have
Okay.
this July and the following July, and then they'll be up to roughly their, I think it was 300,000.
Right.
And then it's going to be what additional work needs to be done.
Okay.
Yeah, it was because there's talk of just a resurface, which nobody believes is going to be the cure-all. They do believe that it's going to have to be regraded, and the asphalt down below is going to have to be poured too. So it's going to be well above that $300,000.
Okay.
Did you guys want to discuss 24, 25?
24, 25, meaning.
The future-
No, the year. No, let's just focus on
Yeah.
23.
Yeah.
Now, there's, I see, this is all, and I'm assuming that some of this stuff in the out years, we're taking off of the, we have that 10-year plan. Is that still relevant? Do you view that as still, if you go back to that, is that still relevant, or are we kind of creating a new 3 years out every year?
Some is relevant, and it's not 100%. Some of their timing is off, like the hot water boiler was a little bit off. They already wanted that changed for the core and for the north house.
Right.
There's some things that we've definitely pushed off. The boilers didn't need to be replaced for the south house and the east house. They just weren't. They still have useful life, plenty of useful life.
Right.
So we look at the 10-year plan, and then kind of look at the campus. So
Yeah.
it's not 100% what we go off of by any means. And unfortunately, as years go, different things fail, and that's why priority changes and how things get added and things get dropped.
Yeah.
So by all means, we're not just focusing on the 10-year plan. And obviously, we know with the 10-year plan, we can't even go off of most of their pricing because it's been so askew. But it's a good basis for a plan, but it doesn't feed into everything that we do.
Richard, from when you look at some of the things going on, are you, obviously there's, we have discussed this list, but are there things that are not there that you're worried about?
Worried about. No, I'm not worried about it. I think we still have to resolve the old gym at the high school.
Mm-hmm.
And that money isn't in the present budget, but
Right.
The old gym at the high school, I have Modern Mechanical coming in. They're just wrapping up some projects now. The hope is that by the end of the year, they'll be in here and do their analysis just to what can get us by for the next 10 to 15 years, whether it's make sure our economizers are running properly, our DDS systems are running properly, fans are doing well, bearings, all that stuff. About a 2 days project for them, but they've already been hired by us to come in and do it. It's just they got to finish up their projects. They're undermanned and they're waiting on material for other jobs to finish.
Okay. Are you going to get a written report from
Oh,
them?
yeah. Absolutely.
So I think that report should be presented to the building committee.
No problem.
And the report will contain estimates of cost estimates.
Yeah, breakdown unit by unit, correct.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know of any specific concerns.
Yeah.
I mean, but here's another issue, and it may go on to the next topic.
Yeah.
Has Tecton been hired to prepare anything on the high school?
They are, Sam has asked them, and I think they are, as far as I know, Lisa, they are working on something, on a proposal for the high school and the rest of the town facilities, but I haven't seen anything yet.
I haven't seen anything. That hasn't been mentioned to me. I met yesterday with Antonia about how to get teacher feedback regarding different grade configurations at the lower schools, but nothing about the high school yet.
Yeah, I have mentioned it, so that should be happening, Lisa. I mean, someone should get back to you. Jeff should get back to you with some numbers for looking at the high school, because I know Sam had mentioned to Jeff to look to come up with a proposal for the high school and all of the other town facilities.
Oh, good.
Okay, because I think the high school has to be, part of the discussion, because there's many millions of dollars
Yeah.
to be spent at some point in time.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's definitely on the radar. But I haven't seen numbers, and Lisa doesn't know anything about it. So my view is that I have to actually kind of mention it again.
Yeah, and I mean, I probably know every single thing that has to be done in that high school
Right.
because I lived it so long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Um,
So I guess this list will be refined.
Yes, it will.
Okay. All right.
The only thing I didn't see on the list that had come up, I think, in a year or two ago was the lockers for the middle school. And I know with the facilities optimization committee, things are a little in flux, but I thought we had discussed at least lockers that could be transitioned to, other space if wherever grades 7 and 8 may end up, that those lockers could be moved as well. Is that something we're still thinking of?
It pretty much got put aside because of optimization,
Yeah.
but it's something that we certainly could investigate into.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, right? Because as we put the list together, the struggle was, what do we put on, right? With the full view of optimization, and how do we get the best bang for our buck? So at this point, we're definitely still holding off, just until we have a better sense as to what the plan will be for optimization, because you're going to put money to put them in, and even though you're going to repurpose them, but then you have to spend money to remove them and put them somewhere else. So for right now, we're just going to wait and see and try to focus on those items that we know will be done. As Mike mentioned, what we really wanted to do was that we did not want to lose focus of some of the items that we've spoken about over the years, because whatever work is going to get done with the optimization committee, it's not something that's going to happen in another year or two. We're definitely a few years out from that. So we just wanted to keep a lot of these items just on top of in everyone's mind, and so that's the view in how we presented it, made up this list.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're kind of like, who knows what's going to happen to those lockers? Who knows how the middle school, if it's going to be a renovation, where are they going to go? What's the shape of the, there's so many unanswered questions. I mean, look, we have all these beautiful lockers in the high school, I'm talking about in the new building. The other ones are junky, and nobody uses them. So
Right.
I don't want to get ahead of ourselves with it. Yeah.
No, it's a fair point. I just, we
Yeah,
want to
it's
keep in mind that
complicated.
we still have kids in the middle school, and I think, how they feel about their building and having pride and where they are and how it looks, does translate to the classroom. So.
No, I know. And one thing I was thinking of, not to get too aside, but anyway, there's this special machine that this transition coordinator might these kids to do business. And one of the things they can do is they can put stickers and things on lockers to make it look better. I would rather do something like that for until we figure out what's going on with the middle school. The ones in the 6th grade wing look great, but I don't think it's worth doing anything until we have a better sense of as far as structurally. But there's other things that can be done. Like the high school, we painted them. We made them look like bookshelves, things like that. Like, I get it. You don't want it to look like a dump, quite frankly. But I don't think it does. I was over there and the bulletin boards, things look good.
Tony, I maybe I want to ask Mike about a little possible small project. Senior Center, the flat roof. Do you have to replace that because you had a significant number of leaks?
No, we had the roofer come over. He's going to give us a proposal. He was here about a week and a half ago, I believe Saturday. So basically what happened there, when the sidewalk was put in for the front, they had to take a rain leader off. So all the water that came off of the gymnasium was redirected to that roof. So one thing, we're going to put some overflows in, which it should have anyway, and find a way to reroute that water, maybe to the back of the building. But that was our issue. But yeah, we have a proposal coming to do a repair to get rid of the water.
Okay, so it doesn't need a new roof.
Doesn't need a new roof now.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. On to the next topic. Want to do a little bit of an update on the facilities optimization. Bill? That is the next topic. I guess I don't. Hold on.
It is the next topic.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, listen, I think some of the most important work has started, which is the work between Tecton, the administration and the staff, right? To talk about grade configuration, which has to be kind of agreed on before we could even start thinking about the possible alternatives, right?
I can speak a little bit to that because I had a meeting yesterday with Antonia.
Sure.
So, what we decided, and I spoke to the building principals, is some of the questions that we're really looking at are to give the teachers that actually have worked in the different configurations, both here and in other districts, like a 5-8 or a elementary configuration. We're going to have 2 sort of think tank focus groups with Tecton. They're scheduled in January. We just confirmed the dates in the kind of like a Zoom faculty meeting with a select group of people that we think can share both the challenges and the different configurations. What are the pros and cons about a 5-8? What about the elementary school? So they're going to be doing that with the framework of, and Tony's actually going to make a great little video about to sort of set the stage of like so many things are possible when you look at how you can move buildings and all this other stuff. And then there's some framing questions that we want them to think about just to give them so that they can give their input on it along with the building principals. So that's going to happen. The other thing that's going to happen that I think is going to be great is they have a way to do what do you talk about your high school experience or space or something like that. We haven't come up with the guiding questions yet. And we're going to have, there's the student government at the high school has some subgroups like climate, facilities, things like that. And we're going to have them also in January just give their thoughts, because I think that it's important for them to have a voice. Now, I keep remembering what Rick Bertassi said, you don't want too many people making the sausage, which I get, but I do think that the people that are actually there living it can have some input into, what's their feedback on the configurations, knowing that, we don't know what's going to happen, but what do you see as the pros and cons? So that's going to happen in January. I think it's the 13th and the 18th, the meetings are scheduled. So I think that's positive to do that. And then to get some input from the students. We have the tours scheduled for the public on that Saturday. And I'm going to be sending that out and giving it to Sam. There's a Saturday and then there's a snow date so that people from the community can come in and see the buildings. And it's not through the lens of look at these buildings and all the issues. It's through the lens of, welcome to our buildings. And this is how we use things. Like, want to be positive about it.
Yeah.
People haven't set foot in the buildings. Parents that have kids in the buildings now that haven't been allowed in, new families. So that's kind of it in an overflow as far as the overview, as far as what's going on with us.
That's really for me is the most important part of this project is what's going on now between Tecton and the administration. Because if we don't get through that and really come up with a set of all options and possible alternatives that make sense from an educational point of view, this whole thing is kind of dead in the water anyway. So this is really where the rubber, meets the road, where we, have to make some real tangible progress with respect to how these schools are being used and what are the different possibilities for upgrading and enhancing our physical plant. Richard, I don't know, you've been through this before, and you see where some of this stuff is going. Any thoughts on your side from a building committee point of view?
Um,
I don't want to put you on the
Well,
spot here.
I contrary to what some of the people believe on this optimization committee, I mean, we're talking about significant expenditures.
Yeah.
And what struck me, and I understand it because construction costs often go up 6% a year. We paid when we built the intermediate school, I think it cost us about $225 a square foot.
Right.
The quote for a new building now from Tecton is $500 a square foot.
Right.
So you look at what we faced almost 20 years ago, and you said, okay, the intermediate school costs something like $24 million. Today, it's going to cost over $50 million.
Right.
And when you look at the middle school, which requires, a tremendous amount of work to bring it up to current standards, and we all know that 20 years ago, we took the middle school out of the bonding issue and kicked it down the road. I mean, you're talking about significant figures, 60, $70 million. And it's going to be a bit of a shock. And it's going to take a lot of discussion.
Yeah.
I mean, there are different, it's interesting when I sit back there, it's the different generations now in town. And I hope that at some point there'll be some consensus as to how to approach it. Quite frankly, I've thought, I can be part of the discussion, but in the end, I won't be paying for this next school expansion project.
Right.
I paid for the last one. It will be the younger families who will have to agree to pay for it.
Yeah. I agree. I was here during the last one, and I know the community effort it took to get to where we got to, and I expect that will be something that we're going to have to go through. But I don't see any other way through this. I think that it's, my view is that it's long overdue to talk about what we need to do to enhance our school facilities. And I do agree. It's really about it's a generational project. It's really about how we're going to educate the kinds of facilities and how we're going to educate our kids in the future. And it is going to be the younger families who really have to kind of really pay attention to this and understand what this means with respect to the economics as it relates to the future. But I do agree that it is a significant expense. I don't see, we probably can be efficient here and there with it, but there are certain things that I don't see how we cannot do that in this town and expect to have facilities that are going to be the kinds of facilities that parents are going to want in the future to educate their kids in, right?
Yeah, I don't think you can ignore the middle school as far as an upgrade,
Yeah.
Because it has become dated. And it's going to be, not an easy project.
No.
Using the existing structure, because it'll have to be done in phases, and they'll drag on for a considerable amount of time, and there'll have to be a lot of coordination. So, it's exciting, but it'll be disruptive. And, if we end up going through what we did 20 years ago with the community, it will be quite loud.
Well, and I keep thinking like, I mean, I lived through that. We're going to have to probably move the 8th grade to the high school if you're going to do something over there. It's going to take such coordination and effort. And, I bet it's going to be more like an $80 million price tag, quite frankly, the extent of the work. And then how do you prioritize? The middle school needs significant work. North House is beyond. I mean, to me, North House is worse than the middle school. What do you do? I mean, it's just, it's kind of overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, I think you take it in phases. I think the first thing is to have a master plan that makes sense for the town and the schools. Then you need to figure out how much that costs and how you're going to actually do it. And then the community is going to have to agree to either want to pay for it or not. I mean, it's ultimately up to the entire community.
Yep, exactly.
Anyway, so more to come. I'm just happy that we finally have Tecton and the schools working on the real substantial issues here before we actually move forward with any real viable alternatives. So. Anything else on this? So does this conclude the facilities portion of our agenda?
It does.
Okay.
Okay,
So,
I will say goodbye.
all right, great.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
How do I turn this off?
All right. Mike, okay.
So Phil, where do you want to go from here?
So I think we have Tracy Edwards, Director of People Services,
Hi,
joining us.
Tracy.
You guys know Tracy,
Morning.
so to give an update. So
Morning.
Tracy, it's all you.
Great.
Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for letting me join. The timing for this conversation, I think, is good. We just had a discussion earlier this week with the board curriculum committee to talk about some of these themes, and I think we can talk about them in a slightly different way within the context of this meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I'll start by saying that this has been an exceptionally complex school year so far, with really no signs of slowing down.
As expected, right? Or even worse, probably even worse than expected.
I would say significantly more challenging than expected.
Right. Okay.
And I think that's adding to the complexity of it, because I think in some areas we were anticipating a little bit more of a return to normalcy than we're getting.
Right.
From my perspective, we are still actively in the pandemic, and it's having really significant implications for our students and our staff. And I would say that these needs are magnified at the upper levels, the middle school to some degree, and especially the high school. And I'm not minimizing the need at the elementary level, but it is magnified and much more significant at the high school, which makes sense, right? I think in a lot of ways, from a social standpoint, our high school students were impacted kind of the most by COVID. They're expected to return to not only their academic lives, their social lives, their athletic lives, their extracurricular lives, and it's creating a lot of stress. And I think as a result of that stress is manifesting itself in a variety of social emotional challenges, which again, we are seeing district-wide, but with greater frequency at the high school. And it's leading to an increase in referrals, both special education and 504 referrals. And again, that's concentrated more so at particular levels. We continue to work through situations on a case-by-case basis. I think you all know that this is a very individualized process. These are individualized decisions. But we have many students whose needs are changing and evolving at a more rapid pace than normal. and more students than normal, and it's resulting in changes in their programs, what they need in order to successfully access school. And I know we're, working through budget development. I think there are a lot of unknowns this year around student need, more so than a typical school year and more so than last year. So we're trying to be really mindful of that in our planning process. And I think in addition to the individual student needs, which quite frankly drive a huge part of the special education PPS budget, that's just the nature of it. There are some larger aspects and more programmatic aspects that I think you can anticipate hearing about as we move into budget meetings. The theme of social emotional needs, I think, will come up in a number of different ways. And we can talk about supports that have been provided, which was really more of a focus in the curriculum committee, and what we'll need for moving forward. And I also wanted to highlight in the context of this meeting, our alternative pathways program at the high school, which I know you all remember was a topic of discussion last year. It's one of the most exciting aspects of this school year. I'll be completely honest. We have a mental health provider who is serving as the focus of that program. She is new to district this year. She's doing an amazing job with those students. Our curriculum and instructional leaders really conceptualized and implemented a brand new academic structure that we really, as far as I know, didn't exist at the high school prior to that. And our students are having an enormous amount of success in the context of that program, social, emotionally, and academically. These students are earning credits in their classes, which was not the case in years prior. They were having lots of difficulty engaging in school because there wasn't an academic component to the model. And I think the social emotional structure is different as well.
Can I ask, were you guys there? Who was there at the curriculum meeting where we talked about it? Were you guys not there?
They were not.
No, I couldn't make this
Okay.
one.
No, it's fine, because I just want to elaborate. They are thriving. I want to read some of the grades these kids are getting. And this is the big thing. They feel so comfortable and supported social emotionally that they're able to perform academically in that small setting. We're talking about grades like A minus, A minus, A minus, C, A. That's one kid. Another kid, B minus, A plus, A, B plus, A, B plus. Another kid, A minus, A plus. These are courses in like Latin, environmental science, algebra 2, U.S. history, graduation requirements. Now, yeah, there's a couple kids out of the group there that are still struggling, but at least they're passing some of the things. But the others are thriving. Their attendance is unbelievable. 1 to 2 absences, 3 to 4 absences. The majority of them are in that circumstance. Whereas if you go back and you look at the other program we used to have, no credits earned, attendance was a disaster.
Right.
So I got to say hats off to the high school for working so hard on this.
Yeah.
And that means, quite frankly, that we are going to request double the academic resources for the budget.
So, the board has always been supportive of what we need to do to make sure that we actually support the social emotional needs of our students. I think that we probably need to step back and focus in on, I think, a couple of areas. And Tracy, there's obviously an increase in the cost of actual services that we need to provide to our students, but also, how do you feel about our ability to handle the administrative burden of everything that goes along with it? So that there's 2 aspects to this. There's one is your support structure internally to handle the overwhelming administrative burden, and then there's the actual cost of services, both in-house as well as any services that have to be provided outside of the district, right? And so I think we need to be very, and I think the board is very supportive, but let's break it down into the entire value chain from your organization all the way to services that we need to provide to understand where we need to spend the money and how the money is going to be spent. And so, and then also there's the added component is this kind of a one and done, or is this a long-term thing? Are we using any federal estate money to actually help us in the short term, or is this something that's going to be part of our budget for forever, right? So I think kind of getting the entire picture as we kind of get to the budget season, I think will really help the board and the Board of Finance get their hands around the entire kind of decision tree around this. But it's not something that personally I didn't, you're not telling me something that I'm surprised about. We saw it coming. We have to deal with it. And so let's just make sure that we're very clear and articulate all of the pieces. Right.
Yeah, understood. I think you raised a number of key issues, and I don't think you're expecting me to respond to each of those in this moment. But we are looking at all of those things, and it's going to be a combination of a variety of different factors. But I appreciate the way that you just framed that. So thank you.
Is there, yes, it's on the radar. And if the purpose of this was to make sure that it's on our radar, it's on our radar now. And so let's just keep on. I don't think it's I think it's probably too soon to actually do this at a regular board meeting, but probably it's something that as we get into the first couple of discussions when the budget is presented, I think this is one area that we should basically dig into and we expect to dig into in some detail.
Understood. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tracy.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we can, Tracy, you don't have to stay on. But if you want to, you can. But by all means, you don't have to.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thanks. Have a good day.
You too.
All right. So with that said, we can just kind of jump into the update as Tony mentioned, and I think it was important that it was just timely that we brought those items to the forefront. So as we enter into the budget year, and as we sort of kind of end this year, just to sort of kind of not expect, but what could possibly happen.
Yeah, and I think we need to frame this in a way, and this is always a tricky topic because and especially it gets out of the Board of Ed into the Board of Finance, and to run that fine line of being of being as transparent as everyone wants us to be around this topic, while understanding that there's certain things that we can't delve into is always tricky here.
Yes.
Right. So we just need to do this. And I suspect this is going to be not an easy one this year.
Not overly so, because the needs change and the needs evolve. It's just a lot of stuff that we have going on, as Tracy mentioned, quite more so at the upper schools.
Right.
We're not seeing at this time. We're not necessarily seeing a direct financial impact, but it's a concern that we have, and it's a concern that Tracy has. And each time we meet, she brings it up. So, just as we transition into the budget, I just thought it was important for her just to inform the committee as to what's going on. Yeah.
You see the issue, and I think the administrative burden in that area is huge. And I think it buries. I think people are getting buried by the administration. I mean, that's just my intuition.
Yes.
And people are getting buried by the administrative burden of that whole area. The problem with that this is the issue. When people look at pupil services as an area, and people kind of look at the number of FTEs in pupil services, even though it's like everything's in there, right? And the question is always, how can you not have enough people to handle it? Look at all the people in pupil services, right? Not understanding exactly what pupil services is, right? Because it has guidance, it has the nurses, it has everybody, right? And it's one of those big FTE areas, right? That are not really understood, because you lump all of these FTEs in there. It looks like the biggest bulk of where your headcount is. And then you talk about being buried in administrative detail, and people are kind of not being able to understand it. And I think that's where we kind of have to dig into it a little bit, because you're going to have that same question year after year.
Yeah, that you're absolutely correct about that, and even just thinking about it, it's a little bit difficult because the perception it's out there, and so it's always difficult to change that perception with SPED PPS, and we every chance that we do try to shed more light in terms of exactly what is going on. The concern or the tricky part is what can you say in a public setting, and that's
Right.
where it becomes a little bit tricky.
Yeah.
I mean, I think for the most part, our board, the board understands what's going on. I think it's everyone external to the board where
Yeah.
it becomes a little bit tricky for them. But we will continue to have those discussions, and every chance we get, just to continue to shed light as best as we can in a public setting.
Yeah.
So I guess so. There are some positives, right? We in the spread realm from a financial aspect at this time of the year. With these, we did see some shifts in terms of what where we thought the cost would be. We're just holding off right now. As I said, things are just continuing to evolve, and I don't want to get ahead of myself by saying, "Oh, things are looking great." But I do like the trend. I do like where we're currently at from the financial aspects of things.
Mhm.
We just continue to monitor those areas. We did submit our initial excess cost reimbursement, but I don't want to report on that because what we reported was not necessarily accurate. We did miss a few items, and similar to what we saw last year, where there are a few students who their particular placement needs special approval from the state. So we could not enter those in the initial round, but we'll definitely do that for March. So we'll have a full sense. I should have a better sense at this month as to where we are, and I will report on that in January. I mean, overall, from the financial aspect, I mean, I'm definitely optimistic that we'll end the year in a good place. I'm sorry. That will end the year in a good place. It's just way too early just to sort of kind of just say, hey, we're going to have a surplus or not. But we do. It's looking okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to highlight a few things, and as we head into the budget, right? Like I want to talk about health insurance. We are seeing a better census than expected, so we will not be at full spend for health insurance. And I want to talk about that because I think it's important, and I think we all know coming into next year, FY23, that we're going to see an automatic increase in our budget as it relates to our dental claims. And I'm toying with a few ideas, and I'm not quite sure if the Board of Education and ultimately the Board of Finance will agree to this, because I know we have different views in terms of how that money should be spent. One thought that I have for our group is that, if as best as we can to partially fund our dental claims for FY22 and just to ease the burden into fiscal 23, so kind of phase that transition from using internal services fund for dental and to incrementally phase that money into the operating budget. That's one thought that I have, but I need some more time to kind of flush that out.
Yep.
But there's a lot of things that we just have to address and see see what we can do with that. I mean, there's definitely some line items that will have some savings, similar to what we have in any given year, where you do have some line items that are positive, and then we have others that are negative. So, but we have to look at things in the aggregate So we just continue to look at that. Diesel costs is a little bit of a concern at this point. We did not lock in a rate, so we're currently paying, we're pretty much paying the price at the pump at this time.
Yeah.
So the ultimate to see where that's going to end for the year. We're monitoring electric usage and stuff like that, seeing that it's sort of full time back in 2 years. So we have to see how that trend is. But for right now, everything is looking okay.
Okay. Yeah. There's the early retirement savings and the turnover savings there. Remind us that those are the two, the sum of those two are big numbers. What were those?
So for this year, we're looking at a net savings between turnover savings for EREP and payments of about 10,000 or so.
Okay.
That was the initial projection for this year.
All right. Okay.
But the good thing overall in our overall turnover numbers is that, based on what I'm seeing right now, it will have a positive impact to the budget in terms of what that overall salary increase is.
Right.
There's just a lot at play here, and so we just have to be, again, the budget process is a lengthy process, and a lot of the numbers that we will present in January may not necessarily be where we end up as we get a better sense, by March. So It's a lengthy process, and this is just a start, right? And so I always have to preface that it's whatever number we present, we'll have discussions about things, and we may find ways, hopefully, to mitigate a few expenses that we're projecting for the new year.
Right. Okay.
Dental claims, we're seeing positive claims experience in internal services fund, which will also help us as well. So I think all in all, I like where we are currently at this time of the year.
Yeah.
In years past, we've always been in this panicking, right, in terms of we're seeing deficits. I think we're in a good place.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is early in the year, but it's not that early in the year.
It's not.
It's not. I mean, you usually have a pretty good sense by now where
things are going to be. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The only the only thing that and this I should have asked Tracy is that are we seeing anything unexpected in our out of district placements now in terms of that line?
No.
Or settlement?
Well, are we seeing anything that we did not expect? No.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of plays, right? We have a lot of movements. We have a lot of in-migration, a lot of out-migration,
Right.
even within that realm. So, as I said, we're as of today, and I always like to say that, as of today, we're at a good place, both in terms of transportation and in our out-of-district placement. A lot of we do have concerns with in terms of unilateral placements and what that ultimate impact will be to the district, but we continue to monitor that, and Tracy's working very closely with the attorney to mitigate those costs as much as possible. In terms of going out and from a due process standpoint, we have to weigh the pros and the cons in going all the way out for a due process. So, for the most part, we do settle, but we're observing things.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would say it's a constant vigilance on this. You get somebody to move into town and they have an outplacement. It's challenging,
Yeah, of course.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
almost and the other thing that's been challenging, quite frankly, is, it's about the staffing. There's
Yeah.
an issue with special ed staffing. There are 2 people that are in the SPED department, teachers that have resigned.
Yeah.
And now we have to fill those positions. You just have to drive on 95. Norwalk is a huge billboard. We need SPED teachers. Never seen this before. And we are facing that as well. People
Yeah.
decide this is an opening. I want to move closer to home for a variety of reasons. I'm leaving. And there's 2 more that we're working on filling right now.
Right. Well, it's
Not
not-
easy.
Yeah. No, it's not. And I think we have to take all of that into I'm sure all of that will be discussed as we go through our budget.
Correct.
Bill, can I ask you, I hear you saying that you're, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Comfort may not have been the word, but with the sped transportation, that you were feeling maybe it was more predictive or predictable, I guess, this year as opposed to years past. We've had some variety there. Why do you think there's a difference this year in terms of how
Well,
we're able to predict this cost?
Yeah, the very first year that we made the transition from managing our own fleet to be in other place was that I think we did not anticipate the number of runs that we would need, right? So if I remember correctly, when we did it, the plan was to have 7 runs, and I think we ended up with 11 runs. So that kind of jacked the price escalated. That caused a significant increase in the cost. I think we have a better sense right now based on, I think we have 2 years in, right, and working with the transportation provider in terms of how they're able to combine runs whenever possible, and at times to do ride shares. So it makes us it. So I'm more comfortable with that. The tricky part, at least I'd mention, is whenever you have a surprise, whenever you have a new family who may move into district that you just didn't anticipate, and they're going to a school that you cannot do, you cannot combine them with anything else. And those are the instances where you'll see your costs going south. We do have families. We have a lot of this year. We have a lot of in-migration and out migration, but I think in the aggregate, we're at a good place.
Okay.
And I will continue to say that this model is the better model than operating our own fleet of vehicles, because in terms of staff shortages, we would have to deal with all of that. And we would always risk not being able to satisfy the IEPs. It's a company where this is their business to provide transportation. They have more at their disposal to have staff. And for us, it's more of a challenge. And then we will end up maybe paying a premium just to have drivers. So I continue to support this model. And if it comes a point where I think we should, I will definitely have the conversation. But for right now, I think we should just continue the way we are.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you've shown it. I mean, you've shown the numbers that, you've shown it by the number. I mean, you've shown the numbers, and you've shown why the increase, why the increase was really a function of the number of rides, not because we moved from in-house to house, right?
Absolutely. And again, so just as we're talking about transportation, there's always one thing, right? So at the high school, and we never budget for this, and I really I struggle to decide whether or not to include it. We have a program. I think, Lisa, you may know what I forgot what the term is, where it's an art program, where if a student wants to do a particular program that's not offered in district, we partner, I think, with RCA. Is it RCA?
Are you talking about CES, where there's been a variety of things, and the way over the past, and the way I understand it is, like, for example, when I was principal, there was someone that wanted to take advantage of one of these, these like magnet programs or choice programs.
Yes.
And then we have to figure out the transportation. Those people are supposed to go through the approval of the principal and the superintendent, because I remember there was one when I was involved with the program in New Haven, but then there's also the program Regional Center of the Arts.
Yes.
That you might recall that's where Mark Ribbons ended up being principal. He recently retired. That's under the CES umbrella. And, again, these children, or ever, if they want to go, we have to be in conversation before to approve, because there is a cost. Like Phil is right. These people, they come for part of the day, then they have to get up there. Mm-hmm. to the facility. Are you saying, Phil, that I wasn't aware we still had someone going? Usually it's not many.
It's normally one per year, but that one student, it comes at a significant cost. So in terms, I mentioned this just to say these are sometimes some of the surprises that we have, right? Where we never know year over year if a student will want to participate in those programs. So it's one of those things where if it happens, we may take a hit for that. We're able this year, as it stands right now, to absorb the cost of that. Mm-hmm. So we'll just continue to monitor. And I think this year, last year,
do we have anyone now?
We do have one student.
We have one.
We do.
Interesting. Because, well, Okay, that's fine. We just have to really look very carefully at, I think that program there is a little bit harder for us to replicate. But I can say to you that when we had one that was going up to the music program, I sat down, worked with the family, looked with the counselor, and we said we weren't going to send the kid anymore because it was at a time previously where then we had AP music theory when, you know, we introduce new courses and they're robust and they accommodate that. I think we always have to be looking at that. To not just say, oh, you can go. It's like, wait a minute, we have new course offerings that fulfill your requirements. So I didn't realize we have one in the arts. That's
We do.
probably the one area that's a little bit harder to replicate, that afternoon program.
Lisa, has there been any real progress on on some of these really advanced courses where we may have a couple of students that are taking it, and Staples has a couple and Wilton has a couple, to find a way of, let's say, one school holding it and the other students zooming in on a class, or I don't know, share those classes that are really advanced where there's only, I know there's scheduling issue, all of those are big issues, but I'm wondering, has there been any movement in those kinds of things?
No, and I think a lot of it is because we're at more of the disadvantage because we're the smallest school,
Right.
to carry the enrollment. So it's kind of like we would be the tail wagging the dog with that.
Yeah.
But we have to accommodate with them. And then you get into, the course would probably have to be offered after school hours, and would the teacher be able to do it? And all of that. I mean, I think frankly, the better route is to do like what we did with the policy recently about looking at the online courses. The one area of movement that the superintendents have been talking about, not to go too far down this road, but it is very interesting that the Stanford superintendent is developing a program. And these are not for students that are taking the advanced, but these are, and there would not be many of these students in Weston, but these are the idea of, it's similar to what Phil said. You come in the morning and then you are transported. We'd have to figure all that out.
Right.
It's in the works talking about it, not necessarily, might be a pilot next year. So we wouldn't put any money in, but basically what it is it's about paid internships and training for students who in the Fairfield County area that are not going to be going to college, or that perhaps need the experience where they would go, for example, to West Hill High School, where they have a program with manufacturing, like in the early afternoon, and then they go out to these companies and they work. And the superintendent of Stanford is very active in developing this program and looking to offer it to some of our kids, which is actually, it's a great option for, particular children that might fall in that category. But that's where I've seen more of the movement, quite frankly. We've also been in talks with, and this is another very interesting idea that was raised. It's with the social emotional, where you're looking at, when you someone is in crisis and they go and they have to, about sharing a social emotional piece to be able to help with social emotional risk assessments, things like that. Superintendents have been more engaged in those conversations through CES to see if there was a way that we could partner and share the cost of that than specific, like higher level academics, for example.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. Anything else? I think we're probably towards the end of the agenda. We, since this is a new committee and it merges too, we don't have enough the minutes, right? Nobody has been.
No.
Only I've been in both meetings.
Correct.
So I don't know how you approve or not. I mean, Melissa, do you know how this works? I mean,
at our board meetings, I think we've always said you don't have to have been there to approve them.
Oh, okay.
But
so
I'm happy to vote to approve them. I read them. They sounded great.
I have no issue with them. So can I have a motion to approve both of those minutes?
I'll motion to approve both the minutes. I don't have the dates in front of me.
Yeah. Hold on, let me.
The 15th and October 15th and November 5th.
Yeah.
October 15th and November 5th.
Peter? Second, Peter?
I'm here. Do you want me to second? Certainly,
yes.
I second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Melissa.
Tony?
Peter.
Okay. Minutes are approved. Anything else before we adjourn?
That's all I have for today.
That's good. I think it's good to have both of these in one meeting.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think it made sense and it flowed well.
Yeah.
Good move.
Yeah. Absolutely. All
Yeah,
right.
much better.
Yeah. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay. Thank you. Have a nice
Have a
weekend,
good weekend,
everyone.
everyone.
Great weekend.
Bye.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Take care.